reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on high and lofty throne, with the train of his garments filling the temple. Seraphim were stationed above. They cried one to the other, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is filled with his glory." At the sound of that cry, the frame of the door shook, and the house was filled with smoke. Then I said, "Woe is me, I am doomed, for I am a man of unclean lips, living among a people of unclean lips. Yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Then one of the seraphim flew to me, holding an ember that he had taken from the tongs from the altar. He touched my mouth with it and said, "See, now that this has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin purged." Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?" "Here I am," I said. "Send me." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians. I am reminding you, brothers and sisters, of the gospel I preached to you, which you indeed received and in which you also stand. Through it, you are also being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I handed on to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, and he appeared to Caiaphas, then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers at once, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. After that, he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. Last of all, as to one born abnormally, he appeared to me. For I am the least of the apostles, not fit to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace to me has not been ineffective. Indeed, I have toiled harder than all of them, but not I, however, but the grace of God that is with me. Therefore, whether it be I or they, so we preach, and so you believed. The word of the Lord.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. While the crowd was pressing in on Jesus and listening to the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. He saw two boats there alongside the lake. The fishermen had disembarked and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, he asked him to put out a short distance from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. After he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Simon said in reply, "Master, we have worked hard all night and have caught nothing. But at your command, I will lower the nets." When they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets were tearing. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come to help them. They came and filled both boats so that both boats were in danger of sinking. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at the knees of Jesus and said, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For astonishment at the catch of fish they had made seized him and all who were with him, and likewise James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners of Simon. Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." When they brought their boats to the shore, they left everything and they followed him. The Gospel of the Lord. Okay, so as an act of Christian kindness, you'll notice I've never sung a note in church. I sing along with you, but I'll never sing by myself. That's just because I love you too much to do that to you, right? But like you, I sing, right? I sing in the shower. I sing in the car when there's nobody around. And I sing with my old sailing friends whenever we are on road trips, which is, what we do as much as we can, but it's never enough. And on one of these road trips not too long ago, we had a couple of those musical misquotes that just make life unforgettable, just beautiful things where people thought they were singing the words to the song and you had to stop and, "What did you just say? Wait, turn off the radio. What did you just sing?" So one of the greatest of these was at the Jesuit house up in Cambridge. Jim Krupa, wonderful fella, wonderful guy, finishing like his third master's degree. He wasn't any dummy. And he was singing along with Carly Simon, "You're so vain. And when you're not, you're with some underworld spy or the wife of a close friend." Some underworld spy or the wife of a clothespin. I said, "What does it mean? A wife of a clothespin? What are you singing about?" He said, "I don't know. You can't. Half the lyrics don't make sense anyhow. Isn't that what she's singing? The wife of a clothespin?" No. There was Judah's favorite one. I just howled, and she howled too when we realized what was going on. Clearwater Revival. There's a bad moon on the rise, most frequently misquoted as, "There's a bathroom on the right," right? Which makes just about as much sense as "There's a bad moon on the rise." But my favorite of all came on one of these road trips about 3 years ago with the old gang. And that Toto song that's getting so much coverage these days, retro, because it's such a peculiar song in so many ways. "I bless the rains down in Africa." And my friend is singing along at the top of her lungs, "I left my brains down in Africa." I don't think that's what it says. And she said, "You're no one to talk," because then she quoted back to me about Love Potion number 9. Remember, I closed my eyes, I took a drink. I got that one so completely wrong, and she still holds that against me to this day, which is all part of the game. It's all good. What's it got to do with Isaiah and with the catch of fish? It's this. In those playful things like, sure, I've messed up a few lyrics in my life, okay? And you've messed up a few lyrics in your life, and that we can get along fine. Let's just nobody pretend that any one of us is a wizard when it comes to song lyrics. No, not a one of us is perfect. It makes it a lot more fun that way, right? And we can have a lot more influence on each other, and we can keep the thing going. And most of all, when you know that you don't have that perfect ear to get every lyric to every song, it makes you listen more carefully, right? So what's that one that's making so many records these days? Taylor Swift. I mean, God help you trying to figure out what she's saying, right? But every once in a while she'll come on and I'm thinking, okay, I'm really going to listen to this. Or Lady Gaga. What did she couldn't have just said that. And you want to rewind the radio, but you realize you can't rewind the radio because it makes you listen more attentively. And I'd ask you just to notice that way. You've had that happen before in different areas. Maybe it's musical misquotes or some other thing where you goof up and it's no big deal. And as a matter of fact, it makes you closer to the people with whom you're goofing up, and it makes you try harder. And so it is with that it gives you that sort of holy self-doubt, that inspired self-doubt. Not the kind of self-doubt that paralyzes you or leaves you on the sideline. No, that kind of self-doubt that just makes you more attentive and more perceptive. And so that's that inspired self-doubt that comes through in the readings today. In the first reading today, we get the story of Isaiah. This is the call of Isaiah. Isaiah's call is unusual. Usually the prophets and these big call narratives in the Gospels start with, whatever the story is, it begins with the call. But not with Isaiah. With Isaiah, it waits until chapter 6. So from chapter 1, Isaiah reports his experience, and then in chapter 6, he changes tune and says, this is what my call was about. So he's in the temple. He has this amazing experience of God and God's power and majesty with the cherubim, the angels flying down, with the coal, with the smoke, with the whole bit, like the Wizard of Oz, but it's God instead of the Wizard of Oz. The pumps and the smoke and all bit. And what's Isaiah's first response? Lord, don't send me. This is what happens so often in the Old Testament. It's what happened with Jeremiah last week. It's what happened with Moses. It happens with all the great prophets. When they realize they're in the presence of the Almighty and suddenly they're so aware of the difference and the gap between the Almighty and themselves. And what do they say? I'm not ready for this. Isaiah says today, I'm a sinner in a sinful generation. Different ways to translate it. It comes down to that. I'm a sinner in a sinful generation. And the Lord says, you know what, Isaiah? You're right. You are. And so I got to help you out. I'm going to come down. I'm going to bring this coal down and touch you on the lips. And that's going to get you pointed in the right direction. But the subtext is loud and clear. Isaiah, as long as you're clear on that, as long as you are really aware of the fact that you are a sinner in a sinful generation, I can work with you. What I don't need is a puffed up windbag who thinks he has all the answers all the time. What I need, Isaiah, is someone like you who gets human frailty, who understands your own human frailty. You are the one I want to send. And he says, go ahead, Lord, send me. It's that holy self-doubt. In the second reading today, Paul says the same thing to the Corinthians as he goes through how it is that all these people had their great big come to Jesus moments. And I mean that in a beautiful way. He gets to the moment, he says, and then last of all, I was called. And I'm not fit to be an apostle. Why am I not fit to be an apostle? Because I tried to ruin the church. I was really a bad guy. I was as bad as they come. And I don't deserve to be an apostle. But through the grace of God, I've become an apostle. And were it not for God's grace, I'd be the sorriest of lost losers. And again, Paul is one of those people to whom Jesus can say, you know what, Paul, as long as you're good, as long as you're clear about that, I can make great use of you. I do not need another puffed up windbag. I need someone who understands human frailty, who's experienced their own human frailty. And when they go to challenge others, they will be aware of their own human frailty. So Paul, get going. I can use you. And it took a good long time to get Paul on track, but Paul was on track, and Paul made all the difference, starting from that moment of holy self-doubt. In the gospel today, there's a lot of puzzles that surround this gospel because Peter's language, he calls Jesus Master and Lord. That's more typical of what Peter says after the resurrection rather than before the resurrection. Might this be a post-resurrection story that was somehow edited into this portion of Luke's gospel? Easily could have happened. John, remember, tells this story as one of the things that happens right after the resurrection. They're cooking the fish on the beach, and he has his version of the story. No matter how it is or where it comes along, it makes great sense. It could have been after the resurrection. Then what Peter would have been saying is, Lord, leave me, for I am a sinful man. Subtext, I denied you 3 times. Right? And even if it happens before the resurrection, originally, Peter is saying, Lord, leave me, for I am a sinful man. He knows his own condition. And what does Jesus do with Peter? Ultimately, he says, Peter, you're my guy. You are completely my guy. Peter, you're aware of your own weakness. You're aware of your own frailty. You are aware that you are a sinner. And I can make great use of that. So, Peter, you're the one I want. Right? Peter, I know you've misquoted enough songs to know that you're going to misquote a few more. Peter, I know that you've made enough mistakes to know that you're going to make a few more. But what's really important, Peter, is that you know that. So when you engage those people I love so very, very much, you are not a puffed up windbag who has all the answers and has never experienced temptation. For those of you who've been at Mass this week and last, you know that the first reading is from the from the letter to the Hebrews. And in the letter to the Hebrews, we get that reminder, he has been tempted in every way, but he never sinned, meaning Jesus. He gets it too. He's aware of human frailty, although he never sinned. It's a beautiful thing. And so I'd ask you just to step back and to realize, right, take that inventory, that personal inventory, in 2 ways. I'd ask you to think of someone who challenged you in your life in any way. Could have been a great coach who made you a better basketball player. It could have been a great teacher who made you a better student. It could have been when your parents forced some stuff on you, they challenged you in ways that really, really made a big and positive difference. It might have been a colleague at work or a mentor at some stage of the game. It could have been a neighbor. It could have been anybody. But I'd ask you to be clear about someone who has challenged you and the way in which they were sympathetic or empathetic with you. They got it. They knew that they have had those temptations and they were prone to make those same mistakes. And maybe they even did at some point. Their frailty is one of their best talents, was one of their best talents in challenging you. Can you think of a time in your own life when the person who challenged you got it? The person who challenged you had that inspired, that holy, that really useful self-doubt. Knowing that they've made mistakes and they're probably going to make some more, and they're coming to you as one who loves you, as one who cares about you, one who wants the best for you, and one who does not have every answer, but is trying to help you. When have you been on the receiving end of that? And right now, maybe, just maybe, where are you on the giving side of that? That you're called, you know it, as a parent, as a child, as a spouse, as a professional, as a coach, as a student, as an athlete, as a teacher, as a you name it. You're called to offer that loving challenge to the other, so the other makes choices that lead them further into the peace of Christ. And are you aware of the fact that, right, you've made mistakes too. I've made mistakes too. Are you staying in touch with the truth that, you know what, there was a time in my life when the person who challenged me did so very effectively because they were aware of their own human frailty? And are you aware of your human frailty? Not to let it cripple you, not to let it drive you off the edge. But are you aware of it as you do the work of challenging the other according to God's hopes? Uninspired, unholy, unhealthy self-doubt paralyzes us. The complete lack of healthy self-doubt gets us into what Churchill said about Chamberlain, right? Often in error, never in doubt. We're seeking that holy ground. Where has someone else come to you with that? And where are you called to occupy that sacred holy ground of inspired self-doubt as you challenge another? Now it's about that healthy sense of self-doubt. Not paralyzing self-doubt that makes us sit on the sidelines and do nothing, and not the absence of self-doubt, which fills us with confidence, false confidence, often in error, never in doubt. It's that healthy thing in the middle, where we deliberate, we discern, and then we make up our minds and we go. But we check in with Jesus. We don't just trust our own stuff. We know that we've made enough mistakes to know that we're going to make a few more. And that works for us. That works for us. Who's been really empathetic when challenging you in your life? And for whom do you need to be even more empathetic? And you're doing a good job, but don't forget, right? When you were in their shoes, you did the same thing. Or given their shoes, you would do the same thing, or be tempted to do the same thing, right? You get it because you've been there. And that's priceless data as we live out our lives as priests and prophets and kings who, among other things, are called to challenge the people we love in the ways of the Lord. What's your story? Let us pray.